Right. All right, welcome everybody. Everybody excited to be here? Yeah, a few people. Okay, so some of the ones in the back row, like, I don't know, I need to take this. Right?
There's a cord hanging that can be plugged into something.
Nope.
Okay, just checking.
There. That should be better. Don't get the feedback on the screen anymore. So yeah, welcome to today's fusion class. Not Asian fusion, more like generational fusion. So a lot of you guys know last month we had planned on doing a healthy families, raising healthy families class. I got sick the night that we were, or not the night before we were planning on doing it. And when I got up the next day, I was like, there is no way I can teach this class, let alone go to work. So I didn't want to lose that class. And I've done this class before. A lot of you guys that have been here for 5, 10, 15, 20 different classes have seen some version of this class before. But I wanted to do it differently because there's a lot of new content when it comes to aging. It's growing health space when you're listening to some of the latest science that's coming out, because more and more people are living older. They want to know how to live older well. And so, when this first got written, blue zones were a new thing. And so we did this whole presentation on blue zones. Well, it's come further than that. And what we know now is you can do a lot more on the front end to prevent a lot of the stuff that we're seeing on the back end. And so I wanted to take a generational focus. And I wanted to kind of break it down generation by generation, see what we're doing wrong, see what we're doing right, see where the generations have different weaknesses, so that not just we can think about ourselves from where we're at today moving forward, but where did we go wrong in the past, and how can we help to coach the people that we love that are around us, that we surround ourselves with. And so that's kind of the point of tonight, is we're gonna work our way from Gen Alpha all the way up to the silent generation and kind of break it down topic by topic tonight. So Cheryl's going to help me out a little bit here, but the tagline here is we're living a life with longevity. And so this isn't about living longer, so to speak. It's about living to your fullest potential, no matter how old you are or how old you get. Because I think one of the biggest fears about getting old, and you can nod or disagree if you want to, but it's being stuck in bed for the last decade, not having any control over what you do and unable to enjoy the people that you surround yourself with. Nobody wants to get old like that, and we don't have to. That's the good news. We don't have to. We get the choice in all of this. So for our online people, or really anybody that wants to, if you want to take a quick picture of that or snag that, you can get a free personalized lifestyle analysis by following the link that pops up. I'll give you guys a second to do that. But that's through our Zytoscan. If you have trouble with that, just let me know if you want to take that, and that'll help match any specific deficiencies that you're dealing with. We find this is a really incredible tool to be able to use. So I'll give you guys another couple of seconds here. But really, one of our goals here, one of the big parts of our mission here is to make sure that we are delivering personalized healthcare, not just a one-size-fits-all. And I mean, as patients, you guys know, you hardly ever get the same adjustment every time. We might find one of the same spots every time, or two of the same spots, but we're looking and we're constantly analyzing to see what's the best way to take care of you on a daily basis. And the Zytoscan is one of the ways that we can do that. So, come on. Giddy. So our mission here, beyond that, goes way bigger than just this room. It goes way bigger than Lincoln. There are about 350 Max Living offices across the country that are doing the same thing. They're approaching this from a holistic perspective. We're not just addressing the cause of the healthcare problems that are going to be killing all of us someday, but the prevention of it. We really we want to fill this room and fill this office with people that don't want to end up like one of these statistics that we see. And so Cheryl brings about 4 decades of experience to this battle. I'm bringing about a decade of experience to this battle now. And so between the two of us, adding April to the mix now, with everything that she's doing with STEMWave and then just building the office as a manager. We are really moving forward to do this in Lincoln, where the other offices across the country are doing the same thing as well. And so if you know somebody that's out of state that really needs this approach to healthcare, then definitely let us know and we'll help plug you in with that. But we look at the state of the union, right? Where are we at right now? We spend more on healthcare than any other country in the world. And it's not even close. 1/5 of our gross domestic product is spent on healthcare services. Then you break it down into your personal budget. The average American spends out of pocket $11,000 per year on healthcare. It's like, I don't have an extra $11,000 to, shell out for healthcare expenses for me, let alone my family members on top of that. It's the biggest cause of bankruptcy in the United States today. And you look at the longevity outcomes of this. The United States, while we're spending more money and we're taking more medications, we have better access to our medical doctors than at any time in history. We are underperforming every other industrialized nation. When it comes to aging, our life expectancy has gone down each of the last 5 years. I was just listening to an audiobook today in preparation for this, and they were talking about the differences in the generations. And they said, oh, it was just COVID. I'm like, no. They wrote it at the end of COVID. So they're like, oh, it's just COVID. It's like, no, it wasn't. In fact, we were the only nation going into COVID that already had a decreasing life expectancy. And since COVID, we're the only industrialized nation that hasn't bounced back. We've gone down 5 years of life expectancy. When I was first teaching this class, I had to teach everybody that your life expectancy was about 80, 81. It was closer to 81, especially for females. But now it is 70. We are heading the wrong way. We're heading there quickly. And so if we want to get the same results as everyone else, we should do the exact same thing as everybody else. So we're going to kind of dive into this and really uncover what each of these generations is doing right and doing wrong. So let's start with the youngins, right? So when I broke this down from the death data, not many of these people are dying. 1 to 11-year-olds statistically across the country, we're seeing less than a percentage point of a percentage point when it comes to these deaths. And so the main issues though that we're dealing with for our Gen Alphas, those 1 to 11-year-olds, obesity, right at the top, right? And it goes right to how they live, right? Obesity for a lot of people in this room was unheard of in this age demographic. You were too active. There wasn't enough time in the day to get fat because you were outside your plane. Well, now, as we're having less kids, right? My generation, the ones that are parents now, we are having less kids than a lot of the generations above us. And so the Gen Alphas, they're actually being pampered. They're more hands-on. We have less children, so we put more care and attention into them. We don't want them to cry. Whereas some of the generations that are represented in this room, oh yeah, go rub some dirt on it, walk that off, cry it out somewhere else. That's not for here, right? The crying develops character, and it's just two different worldviews. And so you have to account for that. But the pampering comes with the side effect of obesity. If the kid's crying for French fries, what's the easiest way to solve the French fry cry? Stuff them full of French fries, right? And so we got to address this at the cause. The other thing is that this generation in the grocery stores right now, more than 75% of the food isn't actually classified as food. It's a food-like product. And so it's very easy to walk into a place that you expect to be able to provide for your family well and walk out and actually make them sick. And so we have to be really careful about that. Mental health has become a really big thing. And I bet if I gave you guys 3 guesses, you could guess the one that starts with C and ends with COVID. For why that is, everybody was wearing a mask. And for the babies starting to grow up and getting into kindergarten, getting into first grade, getting into second grade now, they went through a full developmental phase where they did not see adult emotion happening other than just in the eyes. And there's a lot of brain mapping that happens in these developmental years that these kids just missed out on. And so stress levels are so much higher, even in the 1 to 11-year-old, than we could even think about. I mean, some of you guys were alive, at the tail end of World War II and might even remember some of the radio stories, coming through, or something you saw in the newspaper. There was some fear behind that. But just think about the idea that, oh, I might kill grandma, or grandma might kill me. And that was being said every single day through one media outlet or another. And some of these kids are even getting into technology where they've got, Facebook or Instagram, or they've got something else that's saying it to them just about every single minute of the day. And they can't escape it. And they don't know how to escape it. So mental health has become a real challenge. Now, the other thing that we're seeing here is allergies. And allergies, this one, we don't know why this is so much higher than it used to be, but I've got some pretty good ideas. You look at the amount of medications that are given to kids just right off the bat, right? Baby's crying, we got to get them to calm down. So what are we going to pop in there? Tylenol or an ibuprofen, child's version. Well, what's in those things? Well, acetaminophen is one of the few medications that will actually cross the blood-brain barrier. And when you're opening up those holes in the blood-brain barrier, not just acetaminophen crosses over. We're seeing that, especially right after vaccination, when you give a child acetaminophen, some of that aluminum that's in the vaccine to make it more viable actually crosses the blood-brain barrier and goes into the central nervous system. It's one of the only ways to make that happen. And so you do that, and then all these different medications, most of them, and it's so hard for me to see, but most of the medications now are made with aborted fetal tissue. Before that, it was grown on an agar that had monkey parts in it. Was grown with monkey parts, and it's not in the ingredients. They used peanuts to help grow this stuff, and they used eggs to help grow this stuff. And what are some of the big ones? Eggs and peanuts. And we're looking back on some of these things, and we've stopped doing some of these things. Like in the early 2000s, we removed most of the mercury from the vaccination schedule, but we replaced it with tons and tons of aluminum. And the amount of aluminum that we're taking into our bodies through the vaccination schedule, which from my age, when I was born, it was 7 shots that you got before the age of 13. Now it's 78 shots that you get. And so the amount of mercury that we've seen and we've had to adapt to, when we talk about the amount of sugar increase from the early 1900s to today, has gone up from 5 pounds to 350 pounds. The amount of aluminum that we're coming in contact with intravenously has escalated astronomically as well. And so that's one of my big concerns is with allergies, and not just these other things, but also like the way that we've convoluted the food processing problem, right? Now we're not eating real food, and so we're developing these allergies to not real food, but everything's not real food anymore. The amount of gluten content, gluten sensitivities have gone through the roof recently, and a lot of it comes down to just where gluten tastes better, right? So what are we going to eat? Well, we're going to put it in the food in higher concentrations because it's easier to produce. People want it more because it tastes better, it holds things better. Cardiovascular issues in 1 to 11-year-olds is just crazy. You won't see cardiovascular issues again until we get past millennials when we go through these slides. And this is, again, a response to COVID. What we saw, and whether you want to blame the actual virus or the vaccine or the spike proteins, we don't know, but we saw a spike in cardiovascular issues in children. Even before COVID, we were starting to see that young children were starting to have plaquing in their coronary arteries. And so it's not just COVID, it's also all this inflammation, right? If you've been through a cardiovascular class with us, we talk about it's not the cholesterol, it's not even the plaque itself, it's the inflammation that hardens the plaque, that hardens the arteries, that creates the cardiovascular disease. And then musculoskeletal disorders. Why do you think that would be? Obesity, lack of movement, and then lack of good food as well. So we got a lot of those. So top 3 most common causes in deaths in Gen Alpha, 1 to 11, unintentional injury. Most likely happen just because of unintentional injury. That could be car accidents, that could be drop the baby. That could be babies playing or kids playing on the playground and falls off. It's a very, very low number in the big scheme of things, but it's the most likely thing to happen that will kill somebody that is alive today at 1 to 11. Number 2 is actually cancer. That is incredible that that's become the number 2 leading cause of death in kids between 1 and 11, because generationally that was unheard of, that kids would get cancer, and that's skyrocketed since the 70s. Again, as some of these things changed up here as well. And then the last one here is congenital anomalies, things that you're born with that just didn't develop right. And oftentimes that's related back, and some of you guys remember, because of certain pesticides that were introduced, there were congenital anomalies that, not mom's fault, but just because we didn't know what we were messing with from a chemical perspective, things grew wrong. And in some cases, babies just didn't survive and live beyond that. So that kind of paints a grim picture. Did you have anything to add on that slide?
The only thing I was gonna say was, when you said 78 shots, it's not 78 shots,
Oh,
it's 78 different meds.
yeah,
They mix several vaccines in one shot.
yeah,
So like your MMR is 3, your Tdap is 3. So, I mean,
yeah,
it's still all those drugs. but-
yeah. Now they just combine it
Yeah.
into a single shot.
Yeah.
But you have to get 3 or 4 times.
Right.
All right, so next we have our Gen Zs. So 12 to 29. I don't think we have any. Oh, we've got one. Got one in the back. The Gen Z, fortunately, not dealing with this issue, but you see amongst your peers, and we saw this as they were coming up through grade school, that they have a higher rate of obesity than people before. I mean, 12 to 29-year-olds, this should be the physical peak. And actually, what Blue Cross Blue Shield saw in a study is that now, where it used to be closer to 29, 30 was the physical peak, now it's 25. So even the physical peak of our adults has dropped by almost 5 years as well. So our apex is coming sooner than it used to, which is a problem because now we're having babies older, right? We're waiting to have children, and so that's becoming more of an issue as well. Mental health has become huge here. And you see that down here with the top causes of death. Suicide replaced cancer as the number 2 cause of death in that list. And yes, again, go back to everything that we did with COVID. Yes, it wasn't as developmental for this group of kids, but it's as they're socially self-actualizing. They're starting to look to their peers more than their parents for who they are and their value and self-worth. And so they saw a big separation. You can't go to high school anymore. So where are my friends? Well, they're on the internet, whether it's Zoom or it's Facebook or it's Instagram or now it's TikTok or we've got all these different platforms that we go to, and it almost doesn't feel real. And we see a lot more online bullying becomes an issue, and so suicide just really climbed the list there. Addiction, as this becomes an issue, what do we turn to? The things that make us feel good, the easy things, right? Remember, mom and dad in Gen Alpha are really the same parents here. It's not too much of a generational gap in the parents. It's a lot of mixing in this. And so it's what's easy. It's what comes good. It's what's fast. And so if mom and dad gave you French fries to fill that French fry need, then what's going to fill that, well, I need to drink alcohol or I need a quick hit, it just comes a lot faster. And now because of the use of prescription medications, there's more plentiful ability to be able to get that stuff just from inside the home. Sleep deprivation. So yeah, no, we see this across the board. So many people are willfully and willingly depriving themselves of sleep for furthering themselves academically, furthering their career. And hey, I'm saying it from a personal perspective here as well. Like, part of the reason I got sick when we were supposed to do the last class is I had just worked 10 straight days of 16 hours and stayed up late to make sure I was ready for the next day. And I worked myself sick. I sacrificed the sleep. And so we're seeing that a lot here with this generation. So again, number 1, unintentional injury. This is going to be a common theme. As we're seeing the low numbers of deaths, right? There's not a lot of people between the ages of 12 and 29 that are dying. But when they're dying between those ages, it's usually an accident. Right? They're usually having a slip and fall or doing something dumb off of a pool roof, jumping into something that they shouldn't have. This is when we see those dumb boys do dumb stuff, right? Suicide, we talked about. Homicide starts creeping up here. A lot of this is because we're looking at national numbers, national statistics. Gang violence starts creeping up at this age as boys are becoming young men, and not to leave out the girls, they're part of this too, but it does tend to be young men that do that more. And then cancer, the numbers don't go down here, it just is further down the list because those numbers came up above it. Anything to add about Gen Z?
I was gonna add car accidents, motorcycle accidents, driving, kind of goes in with that.
Absolutely, the unintentional injury category.
I'm invincible mentality.
Yeah.
Adolescents and young kids, young adults
Yeah.
are invincible in their brains.
Yeah. So millennials is next, and this is where I fall in. I'm right at the top of this. Some people call me a geriatric millennial. And actually, I find that certainly I identify more with the Gen Xers that are about to come next, even though a lot of this stuff is true for me as well. But this is where we start to see a little more commonality start hitting these top generations. But headaches become a major issue in this demographic. Now, and a lot of reasons for that. I see a lot of that here in the spine. You know, you start getting that head forward posture. In my generation, we were the first ones that had smartphones and teenage years, right? I didn't get mine until I was in my 20s. But again, I'm a geriatric millennial. And so all the other millennials younger than me were getting them in as teens or preteens as they were coming out and as they were released. And so the speed of the technology starting to go in, and they just get in everybody's house. The book I was listening to this afternoon was talking about how the telephone took about 50 years before 50% of households had it, from the advent of the telephone to when people actually had that. And then for smartphones, it was like 2. And so just the speed of technology just going so much faster. And so the implementation made some changes that we're going to see both from a neurological perspective, from a structural and biomechanical perspective. But yeah, when you get that head forward posture, it blocks off cerebrospinal fluid flow, blood flow, and of course that nervous system flow up and down through the brainstem. Depression. And a lot of this is the same stuff as Gen Z. It's the mental health issues, but now I'm an adult with kids and I just need to deal with it, but I don't want to hard, right? And I had this a little bit during COVID as well. Like all these problems just start piling up on you. You feel like you're the only one that can deal with it, but I'm not capable of dealing with it, and it just weighs you down a lot. And so that's a common issue amongst my generation. Blood pressure. Blood pressure starts to skyrocket here. Why? Because that inflammation, that chronic inflammation that you've been building from all this bad food and lack of exercise and higher toxicity and all these chemicals that you're experiencing in your life, that inflammation, it starts to actually harden the arteries, and now the arteries can't expand like they used to, and now you've got blood pressure issues. Asthma. This is actually where we start getting into autoimmune a little bit. Asthma is partially autoimmune. You're responding to environmental allergens or sensitivities, and your immune system over responds in a lot of ways. And so then we end up with breathing problems. Diabetes. Well, that's where those things that lead to obesity also creep in. My generation didn't deal with as much obesity, but we were still getting way more processed foods. I mean, when grandma and grandpa came over, we were getting McDonald's. When it was, busy night for mom and dad, we were ordering pizza, and then it wasn't real food anymore. At that point, it was already processed food. So with all those things going on, top 4 most common causes of death. Number 1, unintentional injury still. I mean, it's my generation that's on the road the most. Again, those motor vehicle accidents and motorcycle accidents. Number 2 is suicide again. So really that depression starts creeping in, and well, we now own the guns, or we know how to do it. It's easy to make a plan there. Malignant neoplasms, aka cancer. This is the first time we really see this start coming up the list again. But yeah, and then heart disease pops up on the list as a cause of death. Again, most people do not die between the ages of 30 to 44. So these numbers that we're seeing here are pretty small, but it is something that we have to account for when we're looking at what's most likely to kill us during these years. So did you have anything to add here? All right, Gen X, 45 to 59. So a few more people in this room with that. But this is where we start seeing cancers pop up a lot as an active thing that we're battling. Mental health is still an issue, but it's a different type of issue for someone that didn't grow up on a smartphone, that didn't grow up with social media. It's, more peer pressure related. You're more social than the generations that come before you. Vision starts to become an issue at this age. Eyes start to go, eyesight, start having to wear glasses or bifocals. Heart disease is an active issue at this age. And then substance abuse becomes a real big issue. We're really seeing at this age, this is where most divorces happen. Kids are starting to move out of the house. You start not feeling like you're with the same person that you married, or they changed a lot, or I changed a lot. And so you start replacing that relationship with those substances as well. Top 4 most common causes of death here, and we see cancer elevate all the way up to the top of the list here. So cancer, number 1 there. Number 2, heart disease. Number 3, unintentional injury. So that dropped down. And again, it's not because that's dropping a lot. It did actually drop a number for the first time, not just in rank. We have less here than we did with the millennials. But these two also really escalate at this age. That's where they start catching up with it. And then liver disease pops up because of the substance abuse, which makes complete sense. Right? Anything to add for Gen X? All right, the silent generation. And this is where we're going to stop. We can really take the things from the silent generation into the boomers. The next one. Yeah. No, not boomers.
Boomers would be what you call
Yeah. Oh yeah, boomers are Gen X. Yeah, so many different things. What is
the greatest
the
generation.
greatest generation? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so again, you see a lot of overlap here. Heart disease, cancer, but then pain becomes an active issue for a lot of people at this age. Why? Because this generation, the silent generation, was just told to rub some dirt on. Right? Don't tell me you brought your problems. We're just going to shake it off. And we actually see that the relationship with healthcare providers is about the same as everybody else. So it's like, if it's not killing me, why would I ever break it up? And so things like arthritis, which we know is progressive and degenerative, can be prevented if you catch it in phase 1 or phase 2 in reverse. By the time it gets to phase 3, and now it's an all the time issue, now we can't actually do anything about it. And so you're just left to deal with it. And so this silent generation moniker becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for a lot of the stuff that's in here because we didn't bring it up, because we weren't proactive with it. It then becomes mental health. Again, we're seeing this across the board. Mental health is a really major issue, partially because we've gotten a lot more awareness about mental health issues, but also as we explore mental health, we realize that a lot of the things that we just kind of, put in the closet and shut the door, they're active things that we need to be dealing with on a daily basis. So they start cropping up. And then iatrogenesis, anybody know what that means?
It means your healthcare treatment caused it.
Yes. This is where we really see this crop up.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Yeah. So top 4 most common causes of death. Number 1, heart disease. And actually, there's so much heart disease in this category that across all the categories, heart disease is number 2 is cancer. And again, there's so much cancer in this category that all those unintentional injuries falls off the list. Number 3, iatrogenesis. Your healthcare caused it. Number 3, overall amongst all age categories because of how much happens in this demographic.
Is that like effects from medication and treatment?
So it can be them. Yes, all of the above.
So medication error, drug interactions. I didn't read your chart thoroughly enough, and I gave you a drug that you may have been allergic to, but you know it by its trade name, and I prescribed it under a generic name. And
Could that also be because sometimes you have so many different providers?
Yep.
And then
Absolutely.
nobody's taking care of one.
And Dr. A doesn't pay attention to what Dr. B wrote, and Dr. C down the road doesn't care at all and doesn't even look, and just orders. And if you shop different pharmacies,
Yes.
that makes a big difference too. If you go to the same pharmacy, they're going to catch up most of the time.
Now, the biggest place that this happens is actually because you just go to the emergency room that's closest to you. You don't have a relationship with the doctor, you don't have a relationship with the pharmacy. They're just trying to save your life. You're in the middle of heart disease, cancer, stroke, and somebody makes an error. It's almost like we don't want to blame them, but it's also this approach that we take. We just outside in. Let's just address the symptom. Let's mask it until either the symptom goes away or hides. And very often, what we're seeing is the disease gets you, or there's a mistake in the process. Can we hold questions to the end? Thank you. We will. This presentation has the opportunity to go for weeks if we don't. So we will save questions to the end, and we will cover that. Because it's so prevalent here, stroke and COVID came in about the same rate in this generation, and this was from 2022. So we are 2 years behind on this. That's just because we measured the stuff from 23 or 24 yet. But yeah, stroke and COVID came in at about the same rate there. Just take this for, with a grain of salt. There were, anytime somebody died with COVID, even if they died from heart disease, cancer, or atherosclerosis, it was being labeled as COVID. And so the numbers there were artificially raised a little more than they should have been. But yeah, this generation definitely felt COVID more than the other. We could measure some of the other ones as causes of death, but it was way down the list in this generation. Because the number one comorbidity for COVID is heart disease, right? And that makes complete sense there. Anything else to add?
The only other thing I was gonna add was on the pain and getting this generation to rate their pain, or, sometimes we have to be really tricky and say ache, hurt, a variety of things, and then they're frightened to death of being addicted to pain meds because they don't want to take them. So those are things that we deal with as well. And they could possibly do better if they would do something about address the pain a little bit, and then they wouldn't have some of the other issues that they have.
Yeah.
Like immobility.
So get rid of that silent generation moniker.
Yeah.
So obviously there's the next generation above that, but we're seeing fewer and fewer of those people because life expectancy ends in there. Right? However, there's hope.
Yes.
There is a lot of hope. And what we break it down to is these 5 categories, the 5 essentials. So number 1 is nervous system, right? If your brain is functioning and communicating well with your body, you have the opportunity to heal from anything. Why? Because the same thing that grew you out of nothing is in your brain today. It knows how you run, it knows how you work. It is the greatest doctor in the world. You don't have to do or know anything. You just have to make sure that this is uninterfered with. Number 2, nutrition. You are what you eat. You are what you ate. And we need to get back to the garden. Right? We were designed for a garden, and we moved completely away from that. Most of us don't even have gardens anymore. But we need to be in the garden every single day. Mindset. And this is the first one we're going to cover in a little bit more depth and detail. But your stress levels matter. Your sleep matters. Your interpersonal relationships matter. And how you attack life matters, or not. How life attacks you, or how you let life attack you. And then fitness, we're gonna get into that a little bit, but we're designed to move, and we have become a sedentary society. And then lastly, there is toxicity. We are exposed to so many different things. We have to minimize that toxicity exposure where we can. Where we can't, we have to build up a strong protective system. Basically a castle. We have to make our body a castle, a fortress against these artificial toxins that are coming in.
Okay. So mindsets, everybody knows what mindset is, right? We preached it enough. Okay. Prayer, meditation, positive attitude, and sleep. And one of those, I don't remember which generation it was, the 30 to 40-ish that self-deprives themselves of sleep. And I bet it's probably some of the other generations too. I know as my kids were growing up, my daughter would stay up till, 2, 3 in the morning to get her homework done. And then, yeah, she never took a 7 a.m. class for that reason, but she still had to be there by 8. And that really limited her sleep. My son, on the other hand, was much more time management oriented. And he always was in bed no later than 11. He had his homework done, he was in bed, and he could get up without an issue. Again, those different people behave differently. But again, we need to sleep. We need to sleep. And I think we did a few months ago, maybe it was about a year ago, I don't remember.
Christmas time.
But at Christmas time, we did a sleep workshop. 7 to 9 is ideal. Some people get by with closer to 7. Some people try and do it on 3 or 4. And your body just does not have time to do everything it needs to do in that 3 to 4 hours while you're resting, because there's a lot of things that go on in that body. Regeneration, metabolism, lots and lots and lots of stuff go on during that sleep. So we do need sleep. I just can't underestimate sleep. Same way with prayer, with meditation, with positive attitude. You need to surround yourself by people who are like-minded, who have similar mindsets as you. If you're hanging around that negative Nelly, guess what? You're going to become a negative Nelly pretty soon. It just happens. So those are really important components of that mindset. Yep, happiness is a sort of action. So, and Aristotle, who was like 1600s maybe, okay? Laughter, volunteering is huge. Volunteering helps a lot. It extends the lifespan. It extends your connectiveness. It increases your happiness, your mindset. So a lot of different things. There are fewer heart disease and strokes with daily laughter. Patch Adams, if anybody remembers that movie or the story of Patch Adams, was a physician, and he practiced life as being the best medicine. It's not wrong. Okay. Here I already touched on that. Volunteering certainly increases your connectiveness, decreases dementia. Nutrition. So cultures with longevity eat real food. Again, Dr. Jake talked about the blue zones. A lot of those places that are considered the blue zones that have that increased longevity eat seafood or stuff they've grown in their gardens. Again, they're interconnected. There's a whole village that works together to raise the food, to raise the children, to, everything. So in that respect, very much necessary that we work together. Food, again, we don't know what's all in the foods that we eat. If you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't put it in your mouth, because you know that God didn't create it if you can't pronounce it, right? Just simple. And even the foods that we have now, and even an apple or a carrot isn't the same, broccoli isn't the same as it was 50 years ago. The soil has been so depleted. We've added so many chemicals to the soil to reduce the weeds, to make the product grow faster so we can get it to market. Oh, and then we have to add chemicals to the food to make it ripe enough to be able to eat it, because we picked it when it was still raw or not mature, not ripe, because we had to ship it on a boat from Brazil. Okay, so all those things really affect our foods. So the more organic you can go, the better. If you can peel it off, peel the peel and throw it away, you're better off. You don't necessarily have to go organic with those, but if you can't peel it off, then you want to go organic. even peeling an apple, that's still gonna get through, the pesticides and herbicides and whatever all else they put on it. Meat's the same way. Grass-fed, grass-finished, and I know you've all heard me say that, because we have a little bit more idea of what they've been eating. Hopefully, most of that grass has not been treated, but sprayed. But again, some of it has been. If you get that finished, the feed lot finished, who knows? There's growth hormone in there. There is antibiotics in there. And that's just what they shoot the cows up with. That doesn't even count the food that what's all been put on the grain that they're eating. Okay. Fats. So your best fats are what? Olive, avocado, coconut. Those are your three best sources of healthier fats. The omega-3s are your anti-inflammatory fats. Your omega-6s are your inflammatory fats. So look at your meats. Grass-fed, grass-finished, free-range, wild-caught, those types of things are going to be far better off. Okay. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle of wellness. So think about what you're putting in your mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, get the grandkids up next to the stove with you while you're cooking. My kids love to sit and help me cook eggs on Saturday morning. Flipping them like, Dad, don't break my egg.
Yeah, my daughter texted me this morning and she said, Mom, how do I make okay? It was beef and noodles that she wanted to make. It's like, well, that's a whole lot better than, McDonald's or whatever else she may have within driving distance. So core plan, again, our core plan is our basic nutrition plan. We do want the healthier fat options. I wasn't sure if those would highlight more, but just kind of dull.
Yeah, they are cutting it down.
Anyway, fats, we talked about those, the healthier fats. Protein, again, limit your proteins or moderation. Don't limit, but moderate your proteins. Again, organic, farm for, or whatever I said, grass-fed, grass-finished, wild-caught, free-range. Most of your carbohydrates should be coming from vegetables, not from pastas, not from the breads, those types of things. Limit or reduce the amount of fruits or lead the higher sugar content fruits earlier in the day so that your body has time to wear through those and burn through that extra sugar.
Wrapped in plastic is probably more than
Yeah. So the advanced plan, again, same fats, same proteins. Now we're going to eliminate most fruits. We're going to eliminate all sugars and all grains. So the fruits that are acceptable are your organic berries, your Granny Smith apples, your lemons, limes, and grapefruits, because they're not going to raise your blood sugars like all the rest of them. And again, be careful with the grapefruit. I know some of you may be taking medications that will be nullified by grapefruit, so be careful with grapefruits. Okay. The Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, I didn't look to see if this is, I know there's a new list. I just don't know what has changed.
I looked, I couldn't find it.
You couldn't find it, okay. Okay, so Clean 15, these are the ones that you can eat without necessarily being organic, okay? So again, avocado, sweet corn, but limit your sweet corn because of the amount of sugar content. Again, pineapple, that's on the high sugar, high glycemic index onions, papaya, frozen sweet peas, asparagus, honeydew, kiwi, cabbage, mushrooms, mangoes, sweet potatoes, watermelon, and carrots. Okay. You can get those without necessarily being organic, and they're gonna be okay. This is a clean 15. The dirty dozen, those are the ones that if you're gonna eat them, make sure you're getting them organic. So your strawberries, your spinach, peaches and pears, apples, grapes, etc., cherries, blueberries. Again, because you can't peel it off, you can't wash it off, the pesticides, and you really want to get those organic.
So we talked a little bit about soil depletion, and she just hit on it real lightly, but we actually did a study where we measured the amount of vitamin C content in broccoli from the 1930s. Guess how much more vitamin C a head of broccoli had in the 1930s compared to today? 300% more vitamin C in the 1930s. What changed since then?
Our farming.
Farming techniques, right? You think about what did Nebraska look like in the 30s? Oh, it was a dust bowl, right? Right? We were in the middle of a historic drought. A lot of people were leaving because we couldn't farm here. And so the ground wasn't being over farmed. And then what came in to help combat that dust bowl was this industrial farming. We were able to pull more, pry more out of the ground. And as that happened, we didn't remineralize the ground. And so there's a huge gap. Even if you are doing everything right here, where you are missing out on minerals and vitamins, all this. And so that's where, back in school, I might have said, oh, actually, you can get most of what you need from your food. It's not the case. You really can't. If you are not taking supplements, you are missing out. And unfortunately, just taking any supplements is a bad idea too, because there was a study that came out just like 2 years ago that measured all of the supplements on Amazon, and less than 90% of them had as much as 10% of what they said on the label. And so, at risk of wasting my time trying to figure out which ones have it, we just carry some really good ones. We figured out some good ones that we know work. And so that's part of why I got into doTERRA. They have great supplements, and part of why we have the Max Living label that partners with Designs Well. So you'll see 3 labels on our shelves, including the Pure Path, which is the new Max Living label. Don't worry about that. So for my kids, here's what they have every day. They have a probiotic. Why probiotic? It's supposed to be coming from the soil. The kids are supposed to be playing in the dirt, getting it from the soil, but everything's been sanitized. All the germs have been killed. They're not getting as much. And what we see is that kids that have the most bacterial exposure at the youngest age have the lowest rates of cancer and heart disease at the older ages. So we need more of that bacterial exposure. So yes, I let my kids play in the dirt, but also I make sure that they get one of these 2 options. The one is chewable. The other one is a powder. You can either mix it in a drink or mix it in a yogurt, or just do a powder shot. It's kind of like a pixie stick. My kids personally prefer the multivitamin from doTERRA to the Max Living one. It must have a little bit more xylitol in there than this one does, but it's good. It helps to bridge that gap. So that's what my kids take. I would also add that if they do not eat a lot of healthy fats, like it's hard to get healthy fats in their diet, that you should add a omega supplement in there. And that's hard because most kids don't like the taste of fish oil. Right? There's not a lot of good tasting stuff out there that doesn't have that much sugar. There is one through Designs for Health that tastes like a fruit smoothie that will get that amount in there. So if your kids are not getting, a lot of butter or ghee or avocados or nuts and seeds, then add that one as well. And once we hit about 13, then we have to start looking at a broader category of vitamins. And why 13? Puberty, right? Yeah, our bodies change. We grow fast. I know when I went from 5th to 6th grade, I grew about 10 inches that year. That's the year my oldest is in. So I'm like, oh, keep watching that chart. See if he's going to take off like I did. But when we've started to try with him, is he ready to start swallowing the capsules that we put in with him? He's not yet. But once he does, then we have the daily essentials. And what's in the daily essentials is something that everybody should have because 90% of Americans or more are deficient. Number one, if you can't get anything else, get yourself a great multivitamin. Invest as much money as you need into it because it can cover so many gaps and make up for so many errors. That multivitamin just kind of hits everything. You won't hit your omegas. It just doesn't mix well. And unfortunately, by putting so much stuff in there, it doesn't absorb as well for certain categories. So we also add into the daily essentials your B vitamins. So you are getting B vitamins in a multivitamin, but we're adding more B vitamins just so that you're not overloading yourself with that. So the B vitamins, also magnesium glycinate specifically. If you're taking a magnesium supplement and it's magnesium citrate or magnesium oxide, just put it in the back of your cabinet. Like, don't even worry about that one unless you're all stocked up, because that's not good for anything else other than making you go to the bathroom. It's not getting into your system to provide you with the magnesium that you need on a daily basis. And magnesium is necessary in over 300 different processes in your body, so you need that magnesium. The next one I mentioned that the omega, right? We can't put that in a multivitamin. It just doesn't mix well, and so the optimal omega is designed in the right ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s so that you are sitting at the right level if you're consuming a healthy diet at the same time. Most people just take a fish oil supplement or a pure omega-3 supplement, and that's fine if you're trying to get your levels back to normal, if you've been eating a really inflammatory diet, but you should eventually graduate to the optimal omega ratio of 6s to 3s, which is about 2 to 1. It can be anywhere from 1 to 1 to 4 to 1, depending on the person, but it's about 2 to 1 is what we're looking at. So the optimal omega has that in there. And the last one, and probably the most important now that we're getting shorter days, is the vitamin D3. And you don't want vitamin D3 plus K2. A lot of people get that because they're like, oh, it's good for my bones. I want vitamin D3, K2, and calcium. And so many companies will jam those all together in one, but they're antagonistic when you put them together and you take them at the same time. And so they don't absorb well, and they keep each other from absorbing as well. So you need your vitamin D3. That's the most important one. It's a hormone, but it comes from the sunshine. And because we live in Nebraska, we need it more months out of the year. And we need at least 5,000 IUs a day, unless you're itsy teeny, right? 5,000 IUs a day. And then in the winter months, we probably need closer to 10,000 IUs a day. And I would recommend, if you don't know where your vitamin D3 levels are at, go down to Brian over here at 40th and Pine Lake. Yeah.
40th and Pine
Yeah,
Lake.
yeah, that or any other one that'll do it. But have them take your vitamin D3 levels for you. And do you remember how much it costs? Like
Well, the billboard says 15, I think.
$15.
Without a doctor's order, you can just call them up, make an appointment,
Yeah.
have your blood drawn.
And so if your ideal range there is going to be between 70 and 100. Most doctors, if you're above 30, are going to say you're good. That's not true. It means you're good to prevent rickets. But vitamin D3 is so protective against so many other things. We want it between 70 and 100. That's the ideal range. 70 to 100 nanograms per deciliter. Milligrams per liter. And so when you're looking at that, they'll give you a number and it'll be 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Hopefully it'll be between 70 and 100. And that's where you want it to be. And you should measure that twice a year. Right now, at the end of the summer, when you hypothetically had the most sun, right? And then again at the end of winter to see how much it's dropped as you haven't gotten any sunshine. And the only times you've gone off, you've gone off. And so that's the times when you should measure it. And it should stay high. You should be supplementing enough during the winter months that it stays high. And it should go even higher during the summer months because now you're getting the sunshine and you should be out there because there's so much more to sunshine than just vitamin D3. Now we put our D3 with not a broad spectrum probiotic, but a specific probiotic, just a one strain that is responsible for the absorption of that vitamin D3. Most vitamin D3s miss the mark because they don't put a uniform strain of probiotic. And so the probiotic that we put in there is responsible for the absorption of that vitamin D3. If you need vitamin K2, if you need calcium, there's about 16 other minerals that your bones need. We have a different formula for that. is it Osteoforce now? They changed the name recently, so it's hard to remember. But that's not part of our daily essentials. That's just if you have osteopenia or you're trending toward osteoporosis, that's when we add that one. Now, I also put on here the essential oils. And these specifically, this is the Healthy Start pack. We were designed to live in a garden synergistically with the plants that we were caring for, that they could provide for us. They're providing for us more than we even understand right now. And I'm just starting to learn about this and spending more time in my own garden and just learning about how to grow plants and get a garden ready and shut a garden down for the year. But to help fill those gaps, I use essential oils. And we can use this, and part of the reason I got into this is to help bridge the gap between the health issues that we're dealing with now and the medication that is, I just philosophically have a problem with taking. You know, when they're using aborted fetal tissue to develop these medications, which the vast majority of are now. And even if the specific one that you need is not, the company behind it definitely is for other medications. And so philosophically, I just have a problem with that. And so I'm looking for other ways to address these issues by getting to the cause of things that I don't really understand fully yet myself. I'm finding that oils are doing that in a way that I continue to learn about more, and we'll be doing this week at the doTERRA convention in Salt Lake City. And so if you haven't gotten yourself a starter kit yet, a Healthy Start Kit is the least cost that covers the broadest bases, and it comes with a diffuser that you can get as well to help get it out there. And so that's a great start, and I know a lot of you have that. Now, for those of us that are up into that, you know, approaching that silent generation category, there's a lot of things that we need to be dealing with. Some of that is that like osteoporosis, but some of that pain is really just the joints degenerating because they haven't been taken care of properly. And so I wanted to highlight a few things on there. The first one here, the collagen peptides. Collagen, if you've got skin issues that you want to address, if you've got hair issues that you want to address, you've got nail issues you want to address, or you have joint issues that you want to address, collagen is at the root of all those things. It is the main backbone of every connective tissue in your body. And so then you want to be taking a collagen supplement. And I would say probably around the age of 40, and I've started switching my protein supplement to a bone broth base because it has more collagen in it. So I'm getting more collagen into my diet. But I'm also doing a lot more just with bone broth in general. And so if you're not doing that and bone broth sounds gross to you, then something like collagen where you can just put it into a smoothie and it doesn't taste weird. That's a good way to go. I put it in my coffee. You guys know how much coffee I drink. I'm back there stirring up my cup. You know, this had protein in it, right? And it's got a little at the bottom. Try not to dump it on anybody, but yeah. Then the next one here, this is cell repair. So the cell repair formula is designed to deal with oxidative stress. If you want to point to one thing that ages you as much as anything else, it's oxidative stress. And this comes from chemicals, it comes from pesticides, it comes from herbicides, it comes from those, the wrong ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s, it comes from the animal products that we're getting that are being raised on a feedlot instead of that grass-fed, grass-finished. That's where oxidative stress comes from. The things that are in cell repair help to deal with that. And then the multi-magnesium. This is a new version of magnesium. It's also in the daily essentials. But it's multi-versions of magnesium, because what we're finding is more than just magnesium glycinate, we also need some of these, like magnesium threonate is the only magnesium that crosses the blood-brain barrier and gives magnesium directly to your brain. And so not everybody needs that all the time, but we need it in small amounts so that our brain's getting some of that magnesium to be able to do energy synthesis. All right, so next we're going to jump into fitness. So everybody jump on your feet. Jump, come on. Put your stuff down. We're not going to write for a second. We've been sitting way too long, haven't we? Our next slide is cultures with longevity. Move more. Our culture doesn't move. We need to move more. And so we're just going to do a couple of power squats here, okay? So don't go too far if you've got knee issues. At least bend your knees up and down. We're just going to do 10 here. Come on, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Why did I pick 10? Well, because it's a study. It's a study that if once per hour you do 10 squats, blood pressure starts to go down.
Oh, wow.
Right? Inflammation levels start to go down. Your telomeres start to get longer. you start to offset some of the effects, the damaging effects of sitting. You guys can have a seat. I just wanted to save your lives for a second, right? So, movement has become the exception rather than the rule. It's so easy to get lost in our technology, hasn't it? Right? So easy to get lost in the boob tube, which that puts me in the we call it that anymore. So we need to start moving more often. And so what's the biggest obstacle to moving? Pain, right? We talked about that. That's a major issue. So probably the most common thing I prescribe is the joint health protocol. And so we've combined it. So we got the Max Living version, which is curcumin, collagen, and the joint health supplement, which has things like chondroitin sulfate and MSM and glucosamine, and all of that good stuff is in the joint health there. And you can also get that through the doTERRA. So if you respond better to when it's coming in oil form, which oftentimes you do because it's so much more concentrated in the oil from the plant, then you can get there. So this is to help bridge the gap. Now the benefit from the doTERRA stuff is things like Copaiba and Deep Blue address the pain at its root and aren't just rebuilding the joint. It has the collagen in there and the MetaPower specifically to help rebuild the joint. But the MetaPower has a little bit of grapefruit in it. So some of you guys in your medication can't have that grapefruit. So then you got to go with the collagen peptides instead. So you gotta know where you're at. But these are the places that I go when we're starting to rebuild those joints and get there. So that said, what's the best form of exercise?
Walking.
The one that you do consistently. So, but here we go. Do you want the most bang for your buck? Do you guys like a deal? Yeah. Do you guys ever invest your time instead of your money? Well, exercise is an investment of time, right? And you have less time than you will ever have. Right? You can't take your time or your money with you, but you get it this limited amount of time. So if you want the most bang for your buck with your time, it is, I heard it over here. Did you say interval? Yeah, they're interval training, high intensity. So that doesn't mean you are squatting all the way down and up every time, but you are moving yourself at a quick enough rate that your heart rate elevates to almost its highest level, the highest that you can do safely. And so, do that for 20 seconds, do that for a minute, and then you let yourself come down. Then 20 seconds or a minute. Now, so what does that look like? Well, a lot of you guys said walking. So you can do that with walking. But is it this like slow, I'm talking to a buddy, like walking down the block type walk? Or is it this like quick, I'm running, like I'm getting some, it's the second one, right? You gotta lose your breath while you're doing this. You can do it with the buddies still, but you have to force yourself to do more. And so it may involve some resistance with the arms while you're doing it. You may not, your joints may not be able to handle that. You may have to start, and we've had patients do this before, where they were stuck in the chair. They literally could not get out of their chair. So we said, just get 2 suitcases. And every 20 seconds, just up and down with the soup cans as fast as you can, trying to, she lost 50 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, but probably not from drinking the soup, but actually getting that exercise, right? Not everybody here needs to lose 50 pounds. I just give that as an example because so many of us, that is our goal. But we all need that fitness. We all need that ability to move. And so many of our health issues are there. I'm starting to develop it's called epicondylitis, where I get inflammation in my elbow when I adjust too much. Right? Geriatric millennial, right? So one of the things that we did is we got the stem wave, right? And that's actually our next slide to help me address that. But something I noticed while we were still getting that set up is when I did curls and presses, that pain went away. By getting my elbow stronger, it didn't hurt as much. And here I was afraid to move it because it's like, oh, that hurts when I do this motion or twist it. Oh, pressure in the elbow. When I started to get that joint stronger by actually exercising the muscles around it, the pain went away inside the joint. So I don't regret getting this. This is a great tool. Like seeing the results with this has been fantastic. I mean, we've seen injuries that are decades old start to resolve in a matter of 2, 3, 4, or 5 treatments. It's really cool. And part of the reason why we were attracted to stem wave as opposed to just the general shock wave that's out there and would have been much cheaper for us to get is because this technology specifically, we actually see it generate stem cells, new stem cells in the damaged tissues. And so chronic injuries, old injuries, where you might say, oh, I'll give that stem cell treatment a shot, cost you $5,000, $6,000 for a single injection, 50% success rate. We're getting stem cells out of this for $150.
And it's less invasive.
Way less invasive. You actually feel better afterwards as opposed to getting that done. So, you know, if you or someone you know needs this stem wave, it's the $49 introductory special. Lets us know right away if you're going to be a good candidate for it. And if you're wondering, how do I know? I've been through it. How do I know if I'm a good candidate? I didn't feel any better afterwards. Well, if it shocked you in the damaged tissue, if you felt that shocking, that's a good sign that you're a great candidate for this. If you didn't feel anything, if you just felt tap, 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 you're not a good candidate for it. You shouldn't waste your time. If you felt that shocking, you're a great candidate for it. 90% results within 10 to 12 minutes for most of it. That's really incredible stuff. So see people if you want to do some more of that. That'll definitely help bridge the gap into exercise. Toxicity. This is a big one, right? Because we're consuming so many toxins now. The cultures with longevity, they minimize toxic exposure. They're living a life in a natural environment where there's not as many toxins. They're growing their own gardens. And what we've seen is in the past few decades, more than 100,000 new chemicals have been introduced into our environment. 100,000 new chemicals. I mean, all this stuff, really, the stuff that's killing us now has been introduced in the last 100 years. Our bodies have had to go through multiple hoops just to get accommodated to where we're at now with it. And so we have to really protect ourselves. Where? Number one, from our food sources. We talked about this a little bit, the dirty dozen versus the clean 15. At the top of the list of the dirty dozen, that's just the fruits and vegetables. Your animal products would be higher than that. And so if you're prioritizing, how do I avoid these pesticides? How do I prioritize these, herbicides and getting these out of here? The most bang for your buck is getting your animal products completely grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised, wild-caught. That's what you're looking for. Number two, your water. Right? There's so much stuff in there. Some of you guys came to the toxicity class, and I showed you the Lincoln Water Report from the Environmental Working Group. I mean, there's things in there that I would never consider feeding my kids, and yet they're brushing their teeth with it every single night. And I hope they're spitting it out, right? Yeah, I seriously hope they're spitting it out. Personal care products. My wife sent me a study. I wasn't shocked by the study. I just hadn't seen it in study form before. But they found that they were linking one specific fragrance with early onset puberty. One specific fragrance. I don't remember which one it was, but it was the chemical within the fragrance. And it was a very common one, and they find it in all these different. It's in Febreze, it's in these perfumes, it's in all these things that we wouldn't even think had a scent, but it's in like everything. And they're like, yeah, we see this astronomical increase in early onset puberty because of this fragrance. And they don't have to tell you which chemical is in it; they just have to say fragrance. The industry is not regulated. And so that's another reason why essential oils, because you can get the fragrances you like, right? As opposed, and it works too, right? And it doesn't kill you along the way, right? Between being stinky and dying of cancer, I'll take stinky. I hope most of you do. Household products. So what kind of household products are we talking? Cooking pans. Pledge, cleaning. How about, I mean, really anything. Vinegar. Yeah, using vinegar instead of like bleach. Bleach is a big one. What Lysol got really popular these last 4 years. Yeah. No, there's a lot of things out there that are highly toxic. I was talking to somebody, I forget which specific patient it was, but we were talking about potential nerve damage. And I was like, yeah, avoid bleach. He's like, yeah, like our president said to drink the first go. Like, yeah, okay. But yeah, no, so if you're trying to avoid bleach, it's because bleach is a neurotoxin. It'll kill your brain cells, it'll kill the nerve cells. So I don't use bleach for anything. It's in my shed just in case I come up with something. We don't have it in a laundry. And then in-home air quality. In-home versus outdoors. And I know we get these warnings that say that they're so toxic. In Atlanta, where there's more people in the city driving around every single day than in the entire state of Nebraska, the air is 20 times cleaner outside on its worst day than it is inside. So it's better to get that fresh air, better to open up your windows, especially now that we have cool nights, we can actually sleep in them. Get that fresh air, roll down your windows as opposed to driving with air conditioning on. It's just much better. So how do we summarize this? What are the keys here? How to support longevity? Number one, allow yourself to be hungry. Being hungry is not going to kill you, right? I mean, if we've got some diabetic issues or blood sugar issues, we may need to figure out a healthy plan to regulate that properly, but the hunger feeling itself is okay. You have to be okay with that. Number two, move, right? Most of the cultures that live over the age of 100 with regularity, they don't go to the gym, they just move all the time. Most of them actually, they're situated on a mountain, like where the town is sprawled up a mountainside. So just to get from point A to point B to do stuff, they have to climb stairs all the time. And so we can't avoid activity. We have to make sure we're doing it. Get enough sleep. Cheryl just tried to overemphasize this because we really can't. We are getting, as a culture, 6.8 hours of sleep every single night. We should be getting 9 or more. 9 or more, and we're not getting enough. And we train ourselves to need less. I tell this to people and I hear, oh, I get 5 in it. Like, you trained yourself to be fine. You trained yourself to be fine. You're not. Have a calm mental attitude. Be a duck and not a sponge. Not everything is about you, and not everything is an insult. Right? Don't be offended that the other political side said something that you don't agree with. It's okay. It's okay. The world's not going to end because they said that. Right? Maybe their world will. Focus on eating the right foods. Right? It's not about avoiding the wrong foods so much as it is about focusing on the right foods. If you get used to eating the right foods, the wrong foods will take care of themselves. You won't want them as much. You will feel worse after. And so just eating the right foods matters. And here's the most hopeful thing I can share with you guys. Following a longevity diet, right? So the core plan. God made it, eat it, if man made it. If you start at the age of 20, you can add 11 to 13 years of life expectancy just by changing the diet. You start at the age of 60, you still add 8. That is significant. It is never too late to make the change to becoming a healthy person. And if you create a culture of health, a culture of longevity for yourself, your family, your kids, your grandkids, then now we leave a legacy. And there is no greater gift that we can give our families than a legacy of health. No amount of money we can leave them. Not a big enough trust fund or a good enough investment or houses or jobs or nothing that we can give them better than a legacy of health. And so that is really the most important thing. And so that's why we're going to end today with the nervous system, with the chiropractic. And what we see, one of the most common things is the sedentary. Right? In America, we're the worst at it. We sit at our desks all day. But sitting is taking years off of our life. There was a study that came out about 8 years ago that said sitting's the new smoking. That sitting for an hour is worse for your health than smoking a cigarette. You lose 13 minutes for sitting for an hour, you lose 11 minutes for smoking a cigarette. So that's not advice to start smoking today. That is
That's what
advice.
commercials are
to
for.
go- Yes, exactly.
You can stand up.
And now we've
keep
got,
running.
now we've got these programs, these streaming devices where we can skip commercials, we can pay a little bit more money so that we don't have to get up, right? And that we don't have to wait for it anymore. It's taking years off of our life, but they couldn't explain why was it taking years off of their life when they did the study. They're like, we don't know. It was independent of exercise. It was independent of diet. It was independent of all these other factors that you would think would be linked directly with it. It came down to the nervous system. So what these researchers didn't realize is that every time you sit down, just by the act of sitting, you lose 10 degrees off of the curve in the low back. Just by sitting down, you lose 10 degrees off of the curve in the low back. So you sit there for an hour. You introduce something called creep. The muscles start tightening up in that position. They get stuck there. So the next time you stand up, you don't bounce back to 45. Now you bounce back to 44 and a half. But guess what? You're sitting for 8 hours. So now I stand up and I've only got 43. And I stretch out. It's like, oh man, that was a good day. And then I go home and I sit in front of my TV. And I stand up and now I'm down to 42. And then I go to bed. And fortunately, going to bed, laying down, that prone position takes 2 times the amount of stress off of the spine from the seated position. So I'm lying down. That's good, right? I'm out of gravity. That's why I tell you guys before you go in the bed, lay down, take the pressure off your spine. Don't sit up and wait for me. Be horizontal, right? Take the pressure off, but then I go back to the office the next day. And I'm working on my laptop, doing this stuff. And I get up for lunch. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to get up for lunch. Why can't I be underneath my desk? And I, waddle down to the microwave, stick it in, and take it back to my desk. Sit down. Right? And then just shove it off to the side and then go back to work. And I sit for 8 hours. And I stand up and now my curve down to 40 degrees. And over time, this progressively goes from just taking me out of position to building up arthritis. And as I lose the ability to move my spine because of arthritis, my brain starts to suffer. When there's less movement in a joint, we don't fire off the proprioceptors in the brain, in the vestibular cortex, which then creates stress in the anterior cortex, where I'm creating these emotions and feelings. And so now I feel more stressed because my back's not moving. Not because it hurts, but because it's not moving. I don't feel stiff. It moves the same way it moved 5 minutes ago. It moves the same way it moved 10 minutes ago. It moves the same way it moved 10 days ago. But incrementally, I've lost it. And so now I've got more stress. It's built up. And this can happen in a knee, it can happen in a hip, it can happen in the vertebra. But it's creating this stress in my brain. Guess what that stress does to all the muscles? It tightens them down. So now I'm tighter, and so I have less motion. So I'm moving less. And so now I've got more stress. And we've got this vicious cycle going. And I haven't even talked about subluxation yet. I haven't talked about, the vertebra's out and it's starting to put pressure on the spinal cord. It's putting pressure on the nerve root. And then when that starts to happen, now we're getting a more direct response where we're building up this inflammation in the joint. And if we hit the right part of the nerve, less than 5% of the nerve, now we might get a pain signal. We talked about a lot of bad things happening before we got to a pain signal. 95% of the time, we're not getting any of this. We're getting maybe a little bit of weakness in my right arm compared to my left arm, or vice versa. We're getting a little bit of slowness in digestion going through a specific part of my digestive system. We're getting a little bit of decreased function in my kidneys that I won't notice until it builds up until I need dialysis over years and years and years of decades. But if we get these signs, headaches, menstrual problems, high blood pressure, depression, insomnia, sciatica or low back pain, neck pain, dizziness, fatigue, acid reflux, numbness or tingling, asthma, that is a sign that you've been subluxated for decades. Not a little bit. Oh, it just went out last week. It just hurts right there, doc. No, it's been out for decades, and you just happened to hit the pain nerve last week. The pain part of the nerve. Probably your prostate's an issue. Probably your digestive system's an issue. Probably for ladies that don't have a prostate, we've got some hormonal issues going on. And so we have to make sure that we're addressing the nervous system. Unfortunately, who looks at the nervous system medically? When you go in and you have sciatica, are they sending you to the neurologist right away? No. send you home with payments, or just send you to the pharmacist, you know, and he'll send you home with the pain pills. Yeah, muscle relaxers, anti-inflammatories, that's your typical protocol there. And then if that doesn't cure it, then they might up that a little bit, stronger stuff, and then they might send you to a pain doctor. And then if that doesn't work and you avoid surgery, then maybe they'll send you to a neurologist. Then the neurologist is giving you a different, probably an anti-seizure medication, honestly, because there's so few medications that they can actually do that interact with the nervous system well. And then if that doesn't work, now you end up with a neurosurgeon who, does he know anything besides surgery? No, I don't know. I mean, hopefully, these are pretty smart guys. They know a little bit more about neurology than even I do. But they're going to cut things and fuse it into place, or cut off a piece of what God gave you that should be healthy, but because we've ignored it, we're so far gone that either one, we can't do anything about it, or we didn't know how to address it the right way in the first place because we just skipped all that stuff. We've just been constantly managing symptoms the whole way. And so the biggest thing I can leave you guys with is really just this approach of proactive, actual health care. Right? So this was Sharon. Sharon went to a chiropractor her whole life. Hardly ever got x-rays. Only got x-rays when she went to a chiropractor that took x-rays, but only when she was switching chiropractors because she was moving. Didn't even know she had a scoliosis between her shoulders. Was dealing with shoulder pain. We got an x-ray. We found scoliosis between her shoulders, right? This is the front view of her neck. That should be straight and level with the horizon, but where's it coming from? That 11-degree curve between the shoulders. How old's Sharon? At the time of this x-ray, she's 82. Scoliosis is not a geriatric condition, according to your healthcare providers outside of this office. And scoliosis can be fixed by chiropractic. No, they can't. Not if you ask most of your healthcare providers. But I sat down with Sharon, showed her her x-ray, said, what are we going to do here? We're going to do mix, fix, set. We're going to do it 3 times a week. Every day at home, you're going to do mix and set, mix and set, mix and set, mix and set. Then mix, fix, set in the office, then mix and set, mix and set, mix, fix, set in the office, mix and set, mix and set, mix, fix, set in the office. And over the course of 3 months, she went down to 5 weeks. Medically impossible. Can't be done. How many of you have had that happen? Multiple just in this room. Most of you didn't start with scoliosis. But here's the statistic on scoliosis. Less than 5% of our 20-year-olds and younger have it. But by the age of 80, over 80% of you guys are finding it. It's progressive and it's degenerative. If we wait until it's a scoliosis, oftentimes it's too late. This is probably as far as I'm ever going to get her at 82 years of age. Doesn't mean we give up. No, because the day we give up, it starts going back, right? Gravity gets you in the end, unfortunately. We're all going to end up either 6 feet under or blown in the winds, right? Or both, depending on how things work out. Now, but our action steps tonight, number 1, write down your top 1 to 3 things that resonated with you. Write them down. Why write them down? Because there's a neural connection between what you write and what you do. Right? You won't learn it unless you write it down. But also, why only 1 to 3 things? Some of you took like 3 pages of notes or more. And that's good. I'm not saying stop that. Keep going. That's great. You retain more doing it that way. But why only 1 to 3 things that you can do today? Because it's too overwhelming, right? It's a place to start. And guess what? We're going to have another class next month on building a healthier immune system during the flu season and during the holiday season, so you guys don't all end up missing all your adjustments because you're battling the flu or a cold or because of the holidays. Right? I want you to learn 1 to 3 more things that you can implement on that day, next month, when we do that. So, yes, write those down. If you only need to pick 1 thing, that's great. If you need to pick 2 things, that's great. If you need to pick 3 things, God bless you. You're going to have a hard time, but that's great, right? The more things you choose to do, the harder it's going to be. So focus on doing the things that you picked out well, right? And then come back next month, keep learning, right? Dive in. We'll get you more information. And learn about your immune system. Learn about how to make sure that you're strong enough to fight off anything that's coming, whether it's cancer or the next COVID or the last COVID or whatever it is. And then just keep stepping forward. If you end up sliding back, keep stepping forward. Nobody here is judging you, or you shouldn't be. Shame on you. No judging. One step forward. Right? Then if you do want more about longevity, this is a great Netflix series. It's called Live to 100 Secrets of the Blue Zones. If you prefer to watch stuff, I know it's not me talking, it's a different guy, but he's talking about a lot of the same stuff, and he goes into these cultures, he goes into these towns, he interviews these people, and he does it on camera so you can kind of see how these people are living. You might find a match. You might find like, hey, that's my soul sister in Sicily over there, whatever. So definitely dive into that. And then the book I was reading, the one that I was reading today that kind of talks about generations is called Generations. And it talks about the differences in the generations. It goes well beyond healthcare, and it goes into socio-economic, political stuff. And so if you want more information about the generations, that's another good one. So that's what I've got for today. So I will break now for questions, if you guys have any. Yes, Dorothea? Yes, ma'am.
I'm a dietetic and I worked at Brian East for 23 years. Anyhow, my experience going in to see one of my patients one day, and he ordered grapefruit juice. And I said, I can't give you grapefruit juice. He said, why? I said, because this is a heart hospital and grapefruit juice interacts with your heart medication. Then he went on to tell me that he was a cardiologist. You know, everybody's in a nightgown. I don't know if they're a cardiologist or Joe Blow, you know. And so he said, do you know why how it interacts with your medication? He says it can triple the effectiveness of your heart medication. So, or double or triple. So if you're drinking grapefruit juice with your heart medication, stop. You could overdose on your heart medication. So that's the reason.
Just a little tidbit, it lasts for about 72 hours. So you can't just skip my heart meds today and drink grapefruit juice and I'll take my heart meds tomorrow. No, because that P450 lasts at least 3 days after you're had your grapefruit
Don't
juice.
try to game the system.
Yeah, you can't outsmart the system.
Yeah.
Does that work with Batman also?
With what?
Batman? That's a heart medicine that helps you regulate your heart rate. That's right.
Let me look it up. Papapilla. Oh, Propap. Let me look it up.
So I just had my plumbing fixed in my apartment. It's been months. And they came in and they figured out two things. The guys next door were using, that oil that starts with a C?
Castor.
Nope, you know,
Coconut.
canola oil.
No.
You never put that in your plumbing. But then they told me to regularly put Clorox down my drain. Because it cleans out the pipes, cleans out air and grease. That's what they. I know now, I was like, my upstairs neighbor had me do that to try it, and then we would boil water to try to see if get something moved. But I did not, I just thought because it was natural.
No, bleach is
Yes, Barb, do not do your grapefruit juice with your drug.
What about grapefruit?
Same thing.
Been a while, but it was not a couple months ago that I had grapefruit.
It's out of your system now if it's been a couple months, but
Yeah, now for drains, we typically do, we put baking soda down there and hot water, and then we add vinegar after it gets down in there, and just the expansion of the gases oftentimes. Yeah,
I've always taken paper towel like that.
Yeah.
Actually, this was from my neighbors because our pipes were back to back. It
Yeah.
wasn't even mine. I used all of it. And I wipe mine up before they go in the.
Yeah, you really shouldn't put any oil down the drain just because it'll harden on the inside of the pipes. Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious, when, like where I'm living right now, some people take as many as 20 pills.
Yeah.
Is there anyone out there that would even take and do an analysis as to how they interact with one another? Because when I was doing Medicaid, when Medicare first came on board as an administrator of a nursing home,
Yeah.
we gave the pharmacy all of the people's medications, and sometimes we just cut them in half because they were already cutting themselves out.
Yeah.
Just because of the doctors, I
Yeah.
have 3 or 4 dollars.
I used to print out interactions for you guys when you were coming for your new patient. I was wasting so much paper, just with 3, 4, 5 minutes for some of you guys, just with the list of potential interactions on there. And I heard, I don't remember who it was talking or telling the story, that they were, I think it was their dad was a programmer. And he was working on building a program that could check for potential interactions. And they stopped at 2 because the amount of different potential interactions that are possible once you go beyond 2 were just, it would shut down the computer.
Yeah. And this is 20 years ago when Medicaid first came out.
Yeah.
And it was this pharmacist, I thought it was beautiful that he came in, but he saved those people an awful lot of money and a lot of trouble because they were getting things that they didn't need and blowing their stomachs up and doing everything else it does.
I'm gonna say most of the drug checkers that I use, 6 is the maximum you can put in.
Because my daughter's friend was a pharmacist, this is why I know this. She had to go to school as all doctors do. And then she went to pharmacy school. So your pharmacists know even more than your doctors. So they're the ones to check with, and they will go through your medications and make sure they're not interacting with each other.
I was at mental health unit, and there were drugs that those patients can't take, so you probably double check it.
I would say if you're taking any meds at all, you should probably register an interaction checker.
But then there's a lot of other psych meds too with aged and fermented foods that you have to avoid. So that's another whole can of worms, yeah.
Oranges, usually not.
No, not oranges.
Yeah. Something specific to grapefruit.
Somebody says it gets over and vitamin D.
So, yeah, there is an upper limit on most vitamins that you shouldn't take. And really, the fat soluble vitamins all have. However, there's too much fear around the upper limit of vitamin D3. No one in this room is approaching the upper limit. And to get to the upper limit of vitamin D, you would actually have to be supplemented with vitamin D2, which is the synthetic version, the lab version of vitamin D. So it's nearly impossible to get there with D3 and sunshine. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it.
Supplement.
What's that?
We take 5,000 a day
Yeah.
or supplement.
Yeah, you're just not going to get there with vitamin D3 and sunshine. I mean, unless you're sunbathing for 18 hours.
100% new to you.
Yeah, 100% new. Yes, ma'am.
Just to ask honest question, so like when you guys helped me with my supplements, I think I was getting 6,000.
Mhm.
So I take that regularly all the way around, no matter if I'm outside or not.
Yeah.
But I usually go around summertime when I get my physical, and I still over around 7.
Yeah.
I never get higher than that.
If I ever see you guys get above 100, I'll tell you to take it back a little bit. But not because you're approaching the upper limit, it's just over 100, you're starting to spend more money than you need to.
taking 6,000 now and that's 70.
You're
Would
fine.
you suggest that it would go up? Do you
I wouldn't suggest going up.
just leave it there?
Right now, once you stop getting outside, go up to 10,000.
So that means,
Because we want you to stay above 70.
so there's one supplement in there that has 1,000. Is that okay still to add that 5,000 extra?
Yeah.
Make it 11?
Yeah, but I would check it, right? At the end of the winter, check it, see how high you went. You probably find that you drop still. Right? It depends on how much you're getting outside. But yeah, we're way too scared of vitamins and not scared enough about our medications. It's like the iatrogenic level, like, yeah, a lot of that's coming in the emergency rooms, but a lot of it's coming in the emergency rooms because of the medications. So we should be focused more on eating the real foods, getting it from the natural sources. I would love it if nobody here had to take vitamin D3 and would just go sunbathe for 2 hours every single day and get all your vitamin D3 from the sunshine. Again, unrealistic because it's Nebraska, but yeah, if we were in Florida, if we were in California, you know, Arizona, yeah, that would be realistic. Texas, yeah, and we can do it, but we're not, and we don't. So, any other questions? Okay, so here's the deal. Everything tonight is 15% off if you need to restock on supplements. Plus, you guys have your Wellness Warrior cards, so that's another 5% off. And I saw Cheryl going around giving everybody punches. So everybody here gets 21% off of any supplements that they need tonight. So great reason to come in person to the classes, stock up on what you need. If you're interested in specific things that we talked about and like how do we address that with supplements, how do we bridge some of those gaps, pull us aside. Cheryl can answer your questions. I can answer your questions. If you want to set up a STEM Wave discovery session, or you've been thinking about STEM Wave and you want to set up a care plan so you can save $10 per session or $15 a session or $25 a session, April can help you with that. And then Katie and April and Cheryl and myself will help you check out if you need any supplements tonight. Next month, I said we were talking about gut health. I don't remember the date on that specifically. It's the Monday after you
The
get back from
21st.
jury duty.
21st.
21st.
Somebody has to do jury duty next month.
Yeah, we're praying that she doesn't get pulled. Yeah. So thank you guys for coming out tonight. Make sure you sign up again.